where he walked 2,500 miles, 150 days, 13 states, and he walked with 50 to 100,000 people at the same time. And it requires a lot of energy, requires a lot of enthusiasm, and he listened to people. Today, I personally believe that Indian democracy is under attack. It is under serious attack because our institutions are captured. Judiciary, election, police, income tax office, ED, even universities are captured so that you can't go and talk to universities about truth. Our civil society is not allowed to function because there are lots of charges, court cases, violation for income tax, Foreign Regulation Act, and none of the civil society members feel they have the freedom they need to operate. And three, there is very little scientific, logical, rational conversation in public space. And this bothers me. And I'm glad that Rahul Gandhi is here, has taken time from his busy schedule to come spend 6 days with us. We spent 2 days in San Francisco. He had a major talk at Stanford University, met 100 entrepreneurs on artificial intelligence, met a lot of the other community leaders. We are here for 2 days. We had 2 very important meetings today, one with Think Tank, another one was a press conference. And this fabulous dinner is the generosity of Frank and his lovely wife. And all I had to do is make one phone call to Frank. I said, Frank, can you please organize a dinner? And I tell you, he just took it very seriously, and I know what it takes to organize a dinner like this. So we are lucky to have a friend like this. I know where to go next time when I need some help. Since he has done such a great job, I'm sure he has more jobs coming on his way. Day after tomorrow we go to New York, where Rahul Gandhi will be spending 2 days meeting with cultural people, professionals, intellectuals, and then we'll have a major event with about 3,000 to 5,000 people. And our message is very simple. We believe, and this is really Rahul's words I'm using, that Indian democracy is larger global public good. And we want to make sure that we communicate about the status of the Indian democracy. We go talk to many people all over the world. We want democracies to come together to make sure that we deliver freedom, opportunities, employment, security, justice, safety. These are all very important things to us. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my proud privilege to present to you a great son of India, a young leader who is very clear about his commitment and his journey going forward. Thank you, Rahul.
Talk to you, listen to Frank, listen to Senator. I joined politics in India almost 19 years ago. And somewhere in 2014, the rules completely changed. I never imagined that democracy in India could be attacked and weakened so efficiently and so quickly. It's been a very interesting time. So I'm not one of those who's pessimistic. Senator spoke about Mahatma Gandhi. Uh, Mahatma Gandhi wasn't the beginning of that way of thinking. Mahatma Gandhi has deep traditions in India that go back thousands of years. Similar traditions in our states, and so that's a thread. It's a historic thread that Gandhiji represented. It's a way of thinking that is not new. He was just picking up a particular thread that existed in the past. And there has also been an alternative thread, which is what the BJP represents. So it's not a new thing, this fight. This fight is a very old fight, and it has played out differently in India over the years. One vision of India: inclusive, embracing, compassionate, gentle, decentralized. And the other vision of India: aggressive, insecure, violent, and hateful. And this has been the history of India over thousands of years. It's very clear to us the type of India we want. We're not ready to accept an India where the voice of our people is silenced, is crushed, an India where people feel insecure, people feel worried, is something just not acceptable to us. And there's millions of us, there's not just a few of us, there's millions of us. We also see the United States with a very similar ideology, a very similar thought system. It's not our place to talk about what is going on in the United States. But in India, pretty much all our avenues of conversation are shut. Instruments that normally support a healthy democracy don't exist anymore. I'm not proud to say this, I don't like saying this, but this is a fact. The press, bureaucracy, judiciary, they're all under attack, and they've all been suppressed in one way or another. We struggled with this for a long time. And then about 6 or 7 months back, we decided to use an instrument that many people have used before in our country. The idea of a yatra or a walk across the country. And we started with quite a small expectation. We didn't expect anything big from this. It was almost at some level a protest that we were doing, and at another level it was just because all the other avenues were closed. We didn't expect much from it. We just thought, chalo, let's go and see, let's walk and see what happens. And the moment we started, we realized that we had touched a very deep nerve in the Indian psyche. And we got support from millions and millions of people. And the yatra transformed the language, the political language in India. The BJP would never accept this, but it brought in a new, very powerful word that hadn't been used in politics in India for a long time, which was mohabbat in Hindi, or love in English. And we saw in this yatra the power of this word and the ability of this word to bring people together. the BJP applied whatever force they could. They tried to stop us, they used the media, they used the police. And what was very interesting to me was, and I kept thinking about this, that no matter what they tried to do, it just wouldn't work. So there was something quite magical about this yatra, something that touched a chord inside the Indian mind. Many people from the BJP came, workers from the BJP came and told us this, that look, you've done something we completely agree with. So it wasn't just one element of the politics. We are convinced that we will be able to defeat the BJP. Rebuilding the democratic architecture is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. It's going to take time. But we are absolutely convinced that we have the basic requirements that are needed to defeat the BJP. You'll hear from the media that Mr. Modi is impossible to defeat. A lot of it is exaggerated. Mr. Modi is actually quite vulnerable. There's huge unemployment in the country, massive increase in prices in the country, and these things in India pinch people very, very quickly and very hard. But it's been a very interesting time for me to see how this process plays out. I would have never imagined that this is how actually a democracy is attacked. This is the method of attacking a democracy, and it's been very good for me. You mentioned the disqualification. These are good things for me because they teach me and they crystallize exactly what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it. I thank all of you for your support, your love and affection. It means a lot to me, especially coming to the United States and seeing that there are many, many people who are ready to fight for Indian democracy and protect Indian democracy. Thank you very much.
Because most Americans don't follow foreign news. I say that's someone who tries to squeeze foreign news on air. It's very hard. A recent Pew poll found most Americans have no idea who Narendra Modi is. And most Americans in the ruling class you speak to about Modi will say he's good for American national security because he's a counterpoint to China, and he's good for American business because of investment. So how do you push back against that? What is your counter narrative? What are you telling the rest of the world about why they should be concerned about a Modi?
I think, as I've said a number of times, Indian democracy is a global public good. And I think, if you remove India from the democratic equation, there's a tremendous decline on the number of democracies and the amount of people who are living in a democratic space. The Chinese have placed on the table a particular vision of production and a vision of, you would say, non-democratic production, coercive production. And if you want to place an alternative vision to what the Chinese have placed on the table, then that has to be, the backbone has to be democracy. There's no other way. I personally don't think that the erosion of democracy is beneficial to the national security of the United States. I think it's a disaster for the national security of the United States. My messaging here is twofold. One is to the Indian people who live here, who we see as very powerful assets and instrumental in building India back home, and also to the American public, that remember that we share democratic values, and as they're important to you, they're important to us as well.
Definitely energize the electorate. People are definitely do everything. There's no doubt about it. But the other day, Amit Shah promised 300 seats in the next coming election. What are you doing with the EVM machines, and where you think that might be an issue for the future?
I mean, that's really the question. And we've tried to raise this a number of times, but we've not had much traction. We've tried to raise it with the Election Commission. There's a process that the opposition parties are involved in right now with regards to the EVMs. But we get a lot of pushback from the Election Commission, who doesn't really engage with us. I think if we speak as the entire opposition, it has a much better effect. So we are trying to do that. But these are open questions. I mean, we actually don't know about the impact of EVM.
How about going into paper ballot? Opposition.
Yes, that is the proposal that is on the table. That you have a backup. That you have a backup system that sort of backs up the EVM with a paper trail.
Or a VVPAT or a very EVM machine.
That's the conversation currently.
Professor at George Washington University. I want to ask you about investments in women and girls. In the last 7 to 10 years, we've seen significant declines in women's labor force participation. Right now, less than 19% of women are actually in the labor force. And despite so many leaders around the world who talk about investments in women, we're clearly not changing, right, that decline. So I really want to hear from you. What would you propose? How do we really address the disparities that women are facing in the workforce and their economic empowerment?
Well, if you look at the Communist Party and you look at the UPA, we've got quite a good record on that front. We tried to pass a women's reservation bill in Parliament. It got stuck. It got stuck because of our internal coalition issues. I think that's a very, very powerful thing that can be done. We gave women representation at the panchayat level, which has been transformative for millions and millions of women. We had a self-help group movement across the country that has transformed the lives of millions of women. What's important to understand is that the BJP has also got, the RSS has also got a particular view on the place of women in society. And they do not appreciate women playing a significant role in politics. In fact, women cannot be members of the RSS. So the regression that you're seeing is a result of an ideology that the BJP believes in. I think there's a lot of room for empowerment of women in business as well. And I think we've got very decent handle on what are the type of things that we need to do to transform the position of women in India. Saying that, there is also a cultural issue where women are not treated the way they should be in society itself. And that's a much deeper issue than simply a political issue. That issue has been most effectively sort of impacted through social movements. And they are much more effective at transforming how Indian society has seen women. We developed the self-help group movement with that idea in mind. But I think there is a lot of space for changing the cultural values and changing where India sees its women. Walking through India, the thing that stunned me and saddened me was the amount of violence that Indian women face. It's actually an epidemic, and it's not much spoken about.
The question is that you spoke about the Modi government, Modi being beatable, and you talked about some of the economic and employment problems India faces. But just last week there was an election in not that far from India, in Turkey, where you had a religiously tinged populist with an economy in very poor shape, who seemed to be kind of unpopular, but managed to eke out a victory through that. So I guess my question for you is, to what degree do you feel that the election will be based on economic factors, and to what degree it will be on ideological factors? And if it's the latter, what would the Congress's options be going forward?
I mean, when you fight an election, you define the narrative. So if you look at what we did in Karnataka, we defined the narrative and we made the narrative about unemployment, about prices, about harmony. And the BJP tried to polarize the election. They tried from day one, and they couldn't do it. So it's a contest, right? You're putting your narrative down, and they're putting their narrative down. I think there's more than enough anxiety in India, particularly on the economic front, that the next election we will define the narrative. And I think comparing Turkey to India is a simplification. I wouldn't. They're completely different systems. The way the elections are fought are different. Parties are different. I don't think it's a correct comparison.
Negative talk. It's not a welcoming talk. Can you please, once you become a prime minister or at your party, change this to overseas Indians? The simple question is not a very welcoming
We can
one.
look into that, I'm sure.
That's all, simple.
That's, I think, one of the easier questions I've faced. I thought you were going to ask some difficult question.
Yeah. So, can you tell us about the event and what's your impression about Mr. Gandhi, India's opposition leader? About Mr. Gandhi and India?
Yes, well, I was invited to come. I had not met Rahul Gandhi before, so I'm delighted to meet him. And, my purpose of being here isn't to support one political party or another in India, but really to celebrate Indian democracy and to say that we really need to have freedom of political expression, freedom of the press, freedom of movement, freedom of religion. And, I was quite troubled that these charges against the opposition leader and whatnot, that is not what happens in a democracy. That is something that concerns me. So I was eager to come and meet him and hear what he and others had to say. And there are many Indian Americans here who, it's a pleasure to meet and to talk to.
This is the first time you met Mr. Gandhi?
Yes, this is the first time I met Mr. Gandhi.
What's your first impression about him?
He seemed like a very kind of diligent political figure. I mean, he spoke briefly, so I don't know that much. But he was seemed kind of responsible and sober, and he did a good job. It was interesting to hear him.
One of the things he said that Indian democracy is under stress, to be challenged. Do you have a similar view about, because you have been close watcher of Indian democracy?
Yeah, well, the first thing to say is American democracy is under stress. If you can't admit that your democracy is under stress, that's a big problem, right? And so we have had challenges to our own democracy. I will admit that, and I'll speak about it. And I work hard on taking on the challenges to our own democracy. So why on earth wouldn't I speak about problems in Indian democracy? And I look at India. I love India. I first went to India when I was 17. I fell in love. I became a religion major in college. I went to India for a year, studied I lived in Sarnath near Varanasi and studied Buddhist philosophy. And I went back in graduate school. So how much do I love India? And part of what I love about India is its vibrant democracy, almost raucous democracy. And so when I see what's been happening in recent years, it's very troubling to me. The idea of passing multiple laws to undermine minority groups, religious minority groups, to threaten them, to threaten their citizenship, to threaten about immigration matters and citizenship matters. These are very troubling to me. The attacks on the freedom of the press. The press has a vital role in any democracy. So I follow this very closely as a lover of India, and I'm very concerned about it, and I'll continue to speak out about it.
Thank you, sir.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
a lot.
He is a very brilliant and he has very good knowledge on Indian politics, the community and all the things. So he will be very, very good for India to modernize and develop economic development, especially which is very, very important. Not the religions, democracy is very important, the pluralism, then religious freedom, religious liberty is very, very important. So therefore, I think he will be a great Prime Minister for India. And I really like him, the understanding and openness and his honesty. Thank you very much. And my name is Yalasha Puliwati. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for US-India SME Council, the Small Medium Enterprise Council. Thank you.
Here on June 1st at the residence of both Frank Islam and Debbie Dreisman, and we are actually just finished listening to Rahul Gandhi, to me a visionary leader who actually is fighting for a united India with the democracy as well as human rights and religious freedom for all the people, both in India and around the world. That's the vision of the founding fathers of India's constitution and as enshrined in the constitution. And I think you see the Indian American community tonight very much supporting that vision of India which Dr. Ambedkar and others